Hello everyone. Welcome to my YNR 24 spoilers. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. Claire is questioned about Holden and Victor's covert act by Lily Savage's Kane and Kyle. According to Friday, November 7th spoilers for The Young and the Restless, Kyle Abbott questions Claire Newman about Holden Novak as Victor Newman, Eric Braeden, plots and dreams. You can be sure that Victor will make the most of the AI program now that he has it. Victor is in control of the power. Who will Victor initially attack in retaliation? Victor has a lot of other fish to boil, but we think he'll torpedo the Abbotts. Maybe Jack Abbott, Diane Jenkins Abbott, and Billy Abbott won't suffer as much if they know Victor has the AI program. However, they can only realistically prepare for so much in the face of such a potent weapon. Is Kyle able to assist Jabot? Although Kyle has a lot on his plate personally, he would desire to support his family professionally. Kyle arranges to return to Los Angeles and make amends with Claire on Friday's episode. He has no idea that Claire is prepared to go back to Genoa City. Will they face off on the ground or pass one another in the air? YNR spoilers hint at conflict. According to previews for Spicy the Young and the Restless, Kyle and Claire will actually spar on Friday. Claire is questioned by Kyle regarding LA and of course Holden. Claire doesn't have to provide Kyle an explanation for her behavior, which includes having an affair with her tour guide. However, she finds his questioning annoying, which could help Kyle figure out what actually transpired. On the other hand, Claire may reveal every detail about Holden, including the information he shared with her regarding Audra Charles. Or not. As we previously stated, Claire is not required to answer Kyle's questions just because he asks. Claire reached a decision. It's funny considering her past, but Holden's confession helped Claire realize he's not the right man for her. Claire will not be moving in with Kyle, regardless of what she chooses to tell him. Kane Ashby, in the meantime, irritates Lily Winters. When she eventually loses it and pushes back, Kane receives a very ugly message. Is this the moment when the actress takes maternity leave and leaves GC? Red hot spoilers for The Young and the Restless suggest that Lily goes scorched earth. Make sure to stay up to date on everything that is currently going on with The Young and the Restless. Return frequently for the most recent YNR news, spoilers, and updates. Settle in and receive access to the best soap opera information available online. Holden's false account to Claire. Murder was done instead of money theft? According to spoilers for The Young and the Restless, Holden Novak, Nathan Owens, finally told Claire Newman about the crime he and Audra Charles did in Los Angeles all those years ago. Holden gave quite the story in the Wednesday, November 5th program, but a seasoned viewer who has been paying careful attention to this plot would notice that there were several gaps in the narrative. He is undoubtedly lying, but is it because he committed murder rather than stealing? Or is there another explanation? The story of Holden. According to spoilers for the November 5th episode of The Young and the Restless, Holden informed Claire that Audra frequently visited the Shadow Room. At the time, her name was Audra Cortez. One evening, she arrived with a man who was well known in the Los Angeles art scene, and they were commemorating a partnership. The art man began pressing himself on Audra after becoming a touch too inebriated. Holden interfered because he was a stand-up person, but Audra took the man's wallet and slipped out of the pub. When the art guy realized his wallet was missing, he sent his thugs out for Audra, who arrived at the pub the following day in a panic. In order for Holden to inform the man that the wallet was discovered in the restroom when he returned to the bar, she deceived them by asking him to take it. Audra denied taking anything from the wallet when Holden questioned. Holden returned the wallet to the man when he arrived at the pub, and it was discovered that a $500,000 cashier's check was missing. After Audra left town, everything fell apart, and she sent Holden $100,000 for his help, which he accepted since he was in need of the cash. Nevertheless, he noted that this renders him an accomplice to her offense. Murder, not theft. Holden's account has a significant flaw in that he fluffed over the fact that he knew Audra as a frequent patron of the Shadow Room. That ought to have raised serious concerns for Claire. After all, Holden was incredibly fixated on getting Audra back when he first arrived at GC, even though Claire was unaware of it. Because of their secret, he was enthralled with her in many ways and strongly encouraged them to pick up where they left off. They were undoubtedly closer than he's telling Claire. Furthermore, he was mentioned as hanging out with that Audrey girl by Sienna Bacall, Tamara Braun. The fact that he withheld the name of the art person was another cause for concern. Holden acknowledged that it was to keep Audra and himself safe. But why would he be worried that Claire would investigate him? The idea that a somewhat different but comparable situation might have happened is not all that implausible. It's possible that the artist became inebriated and attempted to make physical contact with Audra. Could she have killed the man, nevertheless, in an effort to defend herself? Given that they were obviously more than just buddies or friends with benefits, is it possible that Holden intervened and accidentally killed him in an attempt to protect Audra? It's possible that the two concealed the body, found the cashier's check, and attempted to move on with their lives before running into one other again in Jussy. The power in Victor's hands, his covert act. Few players on the young and the restless great chessboard are as skilled at deceit as Victor Newman. On November 7th, the patriarch's renowned brutality is only surpassed by his revitalized sense of purpose, which is now enhanced by the AI program he recently purchased, a tool of astounding potential. Victor has dominated Genoa City for decades thanks to his ability to see 3 moves ahead of any opponent in addition to his financial prowess. Now that he has artificial intelligence at his disposal, even the most astute competitors are unable to foresee his next move. The AI software is far more than just another business asset. For Victor, it is the embodiment of power, the contemporary counterpart of Excalibur, created in code rather than myth. He understands that control of data is control of destiny in a time characterized by information warfare. Newman Enterprises, his empire, is now able to monitor markets, influence results, and foresee corporate betrayals before they happen. Who will be affected by it first, rather than whether Victor would use it, is the question that hangs over the episode. The most obvious target appears to be Jack Abbott, Victor's constant annoyance. For a very long time, the Abbott family has been the opposing dynasty, engaged in a never-ending struggle for love, devotion, and heritage. Victor intends to exact immediate and severe retribution on Jabot. However, subtle manipulation, a well-placed leak, a false prediction, or a hint of scandal is frequently what makes Victor's ideas so brilliant rather than raw force. His adversaries hardly notice the blow until the harm is irreparable. History has shown that even people with the Newman name are susceptible to Victor's schemes, so his covert act might also affect his family. Sometimes his desire for domination and togetherness causes him to ruin the very relationships he professes to defend. Therefore, it is impossible to avoid wondering if this will be his greatest achievement or the impetus for his downfall as he stares into the brightness of his new technological weapon. Claire and Kyle, the argument that turns everything around. A different type of conflict, motivated by broken hearts and unresolved truths rather than corporate desire, is brewing across the storm of power and secrets. Kyle Abbott is ready to make amends with Claire Newman as he struggles to strike a balance between his responsibilities at Jabot and his turbulent romantic life. Although he has good intentions, the timing couldn't be worse. Distant suspicion and Holden Novak's shadows strain the emotional currents that bind him to Claire. Kyle's choice to take a plane to Los Angeles is an act of desperation masquerading as resolve. After weeks of bewilderment about Claire's sudden disappearance and the rumors that she was involved with Holden, he wants resolution or maybe atonement. However, fate is unkind. He had no idea that Claire has already decided to go back to Genoa City. The sad symmetry of their relationship, two souls constantly in motion and out of sync, is highlighted by the irony of their mirrored aims. The clash is electrifying when they eventually come into contact, although on the ground rather than in the air. Wounded yet calm, Kyle wants explanations. As he asks Claire for information about Holden, her stay in Los Angeles, and all she has been concealing, his voice exudes both power and vulnerability. Conversely, Claire is a stronghold of contradictory feelings. Kyle doesn't need an answer from her, but his inquiries go deeper than she expects. Their tension fluctuates between longing and accusation. The conversation is shadowed by Holden Novak. Claire's silence speaks volumes, and Kyle believes that her tour guide in Los Angeles was more than just a buddy. His curiosity is piqued by every hesitation and pause. Did she turn on him? Or was she just looking for herself in a vulnerable moment? For her part, Claire has some guilt. She was deeply frightened by Holden's admission, which exposed the evil side of his allure. She understands that his tale of pilfered money is tainted with dishonesty, possibly even blood. Claire, who was once fascinated by Holden's mystery, now recognizes the peril from which she barely escaped. Holden's past is a maze of deception. One thing is certain. Claire Newman is done running, whether or not she decides to tell Kyle. Kyle's heart requires honesty in this emotional struggle, but Claire's conscience wants protection, not for Holden, but for herself. She doesn't want her flaws or her fragility to define her. She is adamant that she will never, ever move in with Kyle. Their tale, which at one point seemed to promise reunion, now teeters on the brink of revelation and heartache. Holden's web of lies, the unfathomable past. The endearing yet cunning character who haunts the story is Holden Novak, a man made of contrasts. In an attempt to elicit pity, he confesses to Claire that he and Audra Charles stole from a prominent art patron years ago. He portrays himself as an unwilling participant, a man ensnared in the dishonesty of another. However, the contradictions in his story point to a much worse reality. Holden claims that the crime was straightforward. A cashier's check went missing, a wallet was taken, and there was a moment of weakness. Holden's only transgression was allegedly assisting Audra in hiding her tracks after she allegedly exploited a drunken art dealer while using an identity. But when examined closely, this account of what happened falls apart. Why did Holden act as though their relationship was casual if he really knew Audra as a regular at the Shadow Room? Why leave out the so-called victim's name? And why didn't his guilt show up until Claire questioned him? The most terrifying scenario is that theft was never the real crime, which is consistent with the arc's minor clues. The missing cash could be a cover for a more sinister crime, such as murder. Holden's reticence to provide specifics and the unsaid strain in his memory point to a dread of moral damnation more than exposure. It is quite possible that a fight at the bar escalated into violence. Maybe Audra killed herself by lashing out in self-defense. Or maybe Holden, who always professed to be the protector, stepped in and struck the deadly blow. It's possible that the stolen cashier's check was a post-crime justification, an effort to give what was actually a moment of blind fear a purpose. If this information is accurate, Holden and Claire's relationship is completely reframed. The psychological manipulation typical of a guilty guy seeking atonement through dishonesty is mirrored in his need to control the story and arouse her empathy. Despite being shaken, Claire starts to see through the facade of his charm, which serves as his weapon. What started out as attraction now turns into disgust and terror. Even while she doesn't yet fully understand the situation, her gut tells her that Holden Novak is capable of much more than just lying. Lily and Kane, the end of love. Another storm is brewing in Genoa City, this one brutal and personal, as business strife and emotional conflicts flare elsewhere. With Kane Ashby, Lily Winters, who is renowned for her poise and grace, finally reaches her breaking point. Unspoken grudges and conflicting priorities have caused their relationship, which was once the epitome of forgiveness and reconciliation, to deteriorate. The growing tension between them explodes into a full-fledged altercation on Friday's episode, leaving both of them damaged. Perhaps inadvertently, Cain's actions have pushed Lily to her breaking point. His propensity to downplay her annoyances and avoid responsibility comes across as conceit or, worse, apathy. He has been operating under the delusion that charm can make up for his blunders for weeks. But Lily is tired of being the patient spouse. Her explosion is an expression of emancipation more than just rage. She lets Cain know exactly what she thinks of his character rather than his decisions, shattering years of emotional control. Lily precisely conveys her point in a moment that is both tragic and relieving. She accuses him of confusing devotion for weakness and of taking her affection for granted. Her voice is a weapon sharpened by years of suffering she refused to accept, and her rage is just. The impact is devastating for Cain. The man who thought he could win her back with an apology now understands that he might have permanently lost her. Lily's choice to go scorched earth has symbolic significance. It alludes to the purging of emotional toxins that have long contaminated her heart, as well as the conclusion of a chapter. The message is clear. Lily Winters will no longer be muted or softened for the comfort of others, whether this is a brief departure from Genoa City, perhaps coinciding with Crystal Khalil's maternity leave, or a long-term change. It turns out that her strength, which is sometimes confused with fragility, is what makes her unique. She burns bridges out of necessity rather than retaliation. Interwoven fates, secrets, love, and power. The thematic relevance of these three storylines, Victor's clandestine power play, Kyle and Claire's emotional collision, and Lily's outburst against Cain, is what makes them so captivating. Despite their differences, all stories address the same basic reality. Love demands the truth, secrets ruin, and power corrupts. Victor's technological manipulation illustrates the contemporary conflict between morality and control. The age-old conflict between trust and treachery is embodied in Kyle's encounter with Claire. Lily's defiance of Cain represents the recovery of one's identity following emotional repression. When combined, they create a mosaic of human weakness and resiliency, which is the core of soap opera narrative. The Young and the Restless is brilliant because it can turn intimate disputes into universal themes. Lily's rage illustrates the empowerment that results from ending patterns of emotional dependency. Kyle and Claire's tension reflects the fragility of relationships damaged by mistrust. And Victor's ambition alerts us to the dangers of unbridled power. Every character is at a fork in the road. Victor has to choose if his quest for dominance will cost him the faith of his family. When the truth seems unattainable, Kyle must decide if love is worthy of forgiveness. Lily also has to confront the intimidating freedom of life when her love has fallen apart. Despite their different paths, they are united by the knowledge that every deception, regardless of how well-meaning, has repercussions. The peace before the next storm. Conclusion. The scene is ready for dramatic consequences as the show comes to an end. Although Victor's secret act is still unknown, everyone in Genoa City will soon be affected by his schemes. Will honesty make Kyle and Claire's relationship better or worse? Their relationship is on the verge of discovery. Now free from Cain's sway, Lily enters a future characterized by self-reliance rather than compromise. In addition to being teasers, the November 7th spoilers are philosophical investigations of how people behave under duress. A narrative tapestry full of tension and reality is created by the intertwining of power, lust, guilt, and love. A symphony of emotional crescendos is created as each plotline builds upon the previous one, captivating viewers. The Young and the Restless survives on its capacity to reflect the paradox of life itself, which is that redemption can only start where pretense ends, and that the search of strength frequently reveals our innermost flaws. Whether it's via Lily's fierce independence, Kyle's search for the truth, or Victor's plots, one lesson is constant. In Genoa City, secrets never remain hidden, and every act of love is a bet with destiny.